spying on America, mind control experiments with drugs on unwitting human guinea pigs. As he is learning about these secrets, Richard Nixon's existence is threatened. There's been an obstruction of justice at the White House. Impeachable offenses have taken place, and the question is the president going to survive? In this atmosphere of deep mistrust of government, had these secrets been revealed, it would have been the death of the CIA, and Bill Colby knew it.
Nixon had tried to get the CIA to take responsibility for Watergate as a way of getting himself off the hook. After the resignation of Nixon, it was almost as though the next big story after Watergate was going to be trouble in the intelligence community.
As Nixon falls, as a new president is sworn in, Colby keeps the family jewels, as they were known, under wraps. The danger of their disclosure is immense.
I did learn from people inside the agency that there had been these documents called the family jewels, and I had your father's phone number, and I called him. He did see me, and he didn't lie to me. What he did was, if I said there was at least 120 cases of wire breaking or wiretapping of American citizens contrary to the law in America, he said my number is only 63. There was a question of numbers. He did not back away from the question of wrongdoing, and so that's one hell of a story. Your father was essential to publishing the story about domestic spying.
It was in the aftermath of that New York Times story that Bill called me to ask to come over and speak with me on a very sensitive matter. That was the meeting in which Bill disclosed the crown jewels, the CIA's activities during the Cold War. There were some matters which clearly raised legal problems, and he would have been delighted if I had said, "Don't worry about it, Bill, we're not going to look into that." But I don't think he expected that. I think he knew that we would have had no alternative but to carefully look into all the allegations of illegality.
Colby feels compelled to let President Ford know what's in the family jewels. Colby sends a 6-page letter to Henry Kissinger, the Secretary of State, outlining the worst of what could be revealed when the Senate and the House gin up their investigative committees post-Watergate. Kissinger slows down when he gets to the passage about assassination plots and mutters, "Oh, well, these are horrors." Ford has a meeting with Kissinger and Vice President Rockefeller and Ford's chief of staff, Donald Rumsfeld, in which he says the CIA will be destroyed if this comes out.
Ford decided that he would appoint a commission to investigate domestic surveillance as revealed by Cy Hersh's story. Vice President Rockefeller was ahead of it. Governor Reagan was on it. A lot of people, most of them rather right-wing. At lunch the next day at the White House, Abe Rosenthal, then the editor of the New York Times, raised a point and said, "Mr. President, see that you've appointed Rockefeller and a bunch of right-wingers to investigate the CIA. What credibility do you think that they will have, since they obviously are supporters of the CIA?" Ford said, "Well, that's an interesting question. I had to be very careful about whom I appointed to this commission, because it's very likely that they're going to come across things a lot more serious than domestic surveillance." Abe says, in his inimitable way, Abe says, "Like what?" President Ford, in his inimitable way, says, "Like assassinations." A hush falls over the lunch. After lunch, the Times people went to the Times office. Big question, what do we do with what we heard? They went back and forth. Finally, the publisher, Sulzberger, said, "This was a social lunch. The president obviously misspoke. He should not have said that. So we're not going to do this story." And that was the end of it. But it wasn't the end of it, of course.
President Ford has reportedly warned associates that if current investigations go too far, they could uncover several assassinations of foreign officials in which the CIA was involved.
When this burst on the scene with some of the more colorful stories that came out, it was really a witch's cauldron that was brewing. So I was all for the president using all the executive authority that he could to contain this problem.
It isn't just assassinations. It's the whole area of activity of government covered by a cloak of excessive secrecy.
We didn't realize how this pent-up passion in the Congress, feeling that they ought to have been more entitled to a role in shaping national policy toward the Vietnam War, together with journalists who were competing to be on the air every night with something ever more sensational, would so work together to create just this unstoppable tide of disregard for the national interest.
This is a matter of such gravity. It goes right to the roots of our morality as a nation. Therefore, it must be dealt with by the Congress, and it must be dealt with as a matter of law.